This is also Tom McGinnis. Now, when he's on the radio with me, he doesn't have the same energy. I can promise you that. He uses it all on that call. There's been many a nights when I'm driving in my car and I text Tom McGinnis, that car almost had me drive off the road. And one of them was last night. Tom McGinnis is in Canada, and he joins me right now on the Sports Bash. Tom, how are you, pal?
Mike, good afternoon. I'm doing great.
See, I told you, he'd be very subdued today, but the energy still. Did you get to sleep? What time did you get to bed last night?
Oh, not a good night's sleep. Like, it's so hard on the road, honestly. Like, hope to lay down a little bit. Just got out of a somber movie. Won't get into it. But, we all got back late, and just woke up a little earlier than I would have liked for sure. And that's life on the road. You get chunks of 3-4 hours sleep, but it's all good. We'll be ready for Saturday at 2:00.
I don't like the 2:00 time. That's a tough time. But that being said, you were in the building, Tom, when Kawhi hit that quadruple doinker. The difference in the energy when Joel hit that shot last night was what?
Yeah, right. There was a complete, fervor and raucous energy with that. That building was like that last night. And then that was the silencer. It's amazing because, again, the backdrop was they hadn't held a playoff game since about that time. They went on to play in the Eastern Conference Finals, hosting Milwaukee and then the Warriors. So it had been in over 3 years. Remember, they didn't make it last year, the Raptors, and they were in Tampa. So, yeah, that was the first playoff game in over 1,000 days. And they draw unbelievable crowds. It's 19,800, and they were rolling, right? They led almost the entire game. And that was, I believe, the only time the Sixers took the lead was on that shot by Joe. So that was just, or maybe Maxey early in overtime. But, just an incredible thing. I mean, Embiid's playing at an extraordinary level. It's almost like he's trying to will the Sixers forward, and he did it certainly last night.
Now, Tom, we know, you've been essentially in there for every single heartbreaking moment for Joel. Did last night feel like that? So many times the great players, they lose. They have to go through adversity. You can't get past this team. Every year we come back, they keep knocking us out. Did that moment feel like that over-the-top moment? Did that finally a breakthrough for us?
Like ding dong, the wicked witch is dead kind of moment?
Yeah, right? Kind of exactly.
And now that you say it, for sure, I mean, that, like you say, that, the premise is there's kind of a formula in the NBA, right? You go through, Detroit had to go through Boston, the Bulls had to go through Detroit, and obviously the Sixers with Boston now, and maybe even a little bit, like you say, with Toronto. So, that's a good point because they've hit a Toronto in a situation where they could have made it a series. This is what Nurse was saying after the game. And now they're in a real bad hole, whereas 143 times in the history of the NBA, it's been 3-0 and nobody's ever come back. And so the Sixers, unfinished business. It's not over till it's over. There's nothing harder than closing out a playoff series, and there's nothing harder than closing out one on the road. So that, I think, has been the thing. I mean, they certainly didn't perform like it early in the game, but whereas the Sixers, you can't worry about Toronto. You got to worry about yourself. And, I was a little surprised at how much the Sixers turned it over. That brought back some of that vibe from Game 7 because that's what happened in large part. You go back, Mike, in that game in 2019 here, the Sixers had 13 turnovers in the opening quarter, and that was almost exactly what they had. And Joel, combined with Simmons, had about that number as well. So, and that was one of my keys, and that is, I took it from Nurse, but win the possession battle. And that didn't happen. In the end, it got a little closer as the game went on, but certainly in the early stages, it was 8, 10, 12 more trips and chances at it that they had. So, Mike, real quick, just to revisit, there may have been one other time, but I think the last time you had me on, just to bookend this a little bit, was when Ben Simmons hit a 3. I remember because we were in Camden doing a community service at the Boys and Girls Club, and I walked outside, and you were asking me, will Ben Simmons start shooting the threes? That's how long ago it's been. And look where we are today. Joel Embiid shooting the threes.
Exactly.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Well, and Tom, that you've called the games. They've lost that game every time, right? They never win that game in this run. It's that ugly game, and they just don't have it. Yeah. And one of the reasons is they don't have the shot maker. They don't have the guy to get that last shot. And they finally get it last night, and that's why we talk about. But in parallel to that, the role that Maxey has you've seen the whole season, from the kid that jumped on the court in October to the kid who's out there now, who's now not a kid. You've had to have seen a guy grow before your very eyes this year.
Yeah, right. I think we all have, and we've all fallen in love with him, right? It's a neat thing for sure. Speed kills in sports, right? In terms of, people have a difficult time matching up with that. We're talking about his first step, but it's not just his first step. It's his first, second, third, fourth steps. He gets to the rack, man. He's finding those gaps, and that's where Harden comes in. And, even last night, boy, they really relied on him because James had fouled out, and where Maxey had to handle the point. And, no, you're go back, Mike, and another really good point by you in terms of the closer and the guy to be able to make the shot, and that's where, Embiid comes in. And again, I think we've all, because he's so big and you're like, well, we got to throw it down on the block. It's too hard to get the guy down there. He's too easy to trap. And here we go with a guy making a turnaround three-pointer with a second to go to win the game. That's how it's done, and Doc Rivers has a thing, too, where everyone hates the two in today's analytical world until it comes time to win the game. And then it's the perfect shot, and the point being, again, you don't always get right down low. It's sometimes the mid-range deal. So, no, I mean, that's a big thing. They had Jimmy Butler in this sequence earlier, and even then it was so hard to score in that Game 7 that we refer back to. There was 2 24-second shot clock violations. It's interesting. 2 weeks ago we were here, April 7th, and they had that game on, and I was getting ready for the game and walking around the room or whatever, and that Game 7 was on. So I watched like 4 minutes of it. The chunk was in the third quarter, and the Sixers were in the midst of a 16-0 run and took a 57-50 lead. And, we know the result. And by the way, Tobias came down with a 3 in that. It made it a 10-point game. But, you know what I mean? So that's that. And now, now you got this. And the point is, even at halftime, down 10, that's what Doc Rivers focused on. As badly as they played, particularly, in comparison to the first 2 games in Philadelphia, the point was you were within striking distance. And Maxey's been a big part of that. He's been a terrific player. It's the shooting, it's not just the drives. I think he got into the float game a little too much last night, but that's also because they're sending help. But he's been a terrific story, not to get off your initial point there.
Well, I want to get your opinion then on what Harden is bringing. What is he kind of adding to this team? Because he's not the Harden that many of our listeners or basketball fans remember from the Rockets. I mean, he is that guy, but it's a little something different than we're seeing here in Philadelphia than the guy that we remember with Houston.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, I think you're speaking a little bit to the separation. Before he was able to fly by you and, shoot the 3. And now he's a little bit of both. He's more of a quarterback and distributor, I think, maybe. But he's still awful good. And the shots that the Sixers are getting, you go back to 21 made threes and 17 and a half, some of the numbers that they've had in recent games going back to the late part of the regular season and the first 2 games, scoring 133 points and, 115. Those are numbers. And that's what Doc Rivers has said since he got here. I don't really care how we score. As long as we score and put those numbers up. And he's been a big part of that. So his passing has been great. I thought in the first game, you saw, I don't know if it's because he had the week off or the conditioning, but I thought there was a little bit more where he was turning on the gas a little bit and get by some people. I don't know. Hopefully we'll see that a little bit more, but and certainly when he does get in there, there's been another guy coming over and they've enveloped him a little bit and made it more difficult. But he's working on a lot of things, and I think one of the things he worked off in terms of before the game last Saturday during that last week off was trying to get the catch and shoot ball, and because he's not used to that. But he's been awful good, Mike, when you look at the points and the assists, and even at times his defense in this series, because there's been times where he's switching out, and at times he's been guarding Anunoby, which nobody's really stopped it, OG so far. But he's still very, very good. Like you say, it's not exactly the player that the Rockets, when he was with Houston, and at that time he was maybe the most prolific player offensively, not just then, but, considered all time with how much he was able to score the ball in those Houston years.
Tom McGinnis, the play-by-play voice of the 76ers, is our guest here on 97.3 ESPN. Where did you see Doc run out there and call timeout? Or was that what the heck's going on here?
He's right in front of me.
Yeah?
Yeah, no, he's right in front of me. And I thought my sentiment was like, before, because you didn't know how it was going to unfold. Oh, man, this is unreal. This is one of the biggest possessions of the year. And we frittered away with down at half court. So that's there's two things that, now that I've seen it, you're talking about getting to bed and the rest. I watched it a bunch of times. I watched the film there, Mike. One was that Doc saving that by calling timeout. Totally one of the points up here on their local. So they air the games like they aired the Turner Bulls Bucks coverage. And the second the game's over, they go to their version of ESPN.
Right.
It's called Sports Center with the TRE. So they got right into that. And then he got Jack Armstrong and Leo Routens on there. And that was his first question, the host. Kind of a smart alecky Kevin Maine kind of guy, or, Kenny Maine kind of guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was saying, he ran out of the coach's box.
Right.
And I'm like, are you serious? That's the point. I mean, yes, he did. And by the rule of the law, he did. But common sense trumps the rules. And Doc saved the day by calling that timeout. And then, calling a play where Joel could turn. And then I think Nurse kind of outsmarted himself a little bit with Van Vliet in there. He's the smallest guy in the court. And when you look, if that's Chris Boucher, maybe Joel has to, rise it up a little bit more or whatever. It was Van Vliet who was trying to avert the foul, which allows Embiid the clearance to be able to turn and get that shot. And then, too, you go back and earlier in the game, what was it? I forget if it was in the word Embiid. I think it was at the home game. Yeah, it was by their bench. That was, not the exact same shot, but he dribbled up a little bit knowing he was going to do a pirouette deep in that corner and shoot the three.
Yep.
That was a similar type of shot. And, Mike, that's one we all grew up in the backyard. 3, 2, 1, he took my gas target. You know what I mean? And he did it for real. How cool was that?
I did that the other day in my driveway. My legs still hurt.
Sports bash. No.
Now, did you have somebody on post game last night? Who was your guest?
Maxey. All I could say was Joel Embiid MVP. And then I watched his post game availability, and he basically said the same thing because there are a lot of adjectives. They've seen it. They know. Those guys know, and they're just as mesmerized as we are with the skill set of Embiid. But, yeah, I spoke to Tyrese Maxey postgame. Yeah.
So Maxey was your guest. Kate had Tobias on the TV side.
Yeah.
And I thought Tobias's answer was one of, hey, I've grown up. But not that he's an immature guy, but the eye-opening. He said, I'm not shooting it well tonight. So I said, no one is scoring on me. And I don't know that anybody would see Tobias Harris have that attitude or persona before.
No, I tell you what, Mike, we're demanding as sports fans, but being around him and being around our team, he's an incredible guy, and look, I'm harsh on him sometimes too, calling the games, but he made a play, like a gritty Philadelphia play. And I said that. At the end of the game, he got hit in the face. I forget, but it was at the defensive end where he got that rebound. We got some big stops, forced them to miss contested shots. That's how you win games too, right? And that was a big thing down the stretch. And, he's done a terrific job against Siakam. His whole career, he's been kind of defensively challenged. And that's a hard thing to get better at, right? I mean, you're working on your foot speed, it's the lateral quickness. And Siakam's a really tough cover. And, I mean, he shredded us, speaking of that game 2 weeks ago. He had 37 and a triple-double. Remember that? I mean, It's like, geez, how are we going to beat this team? Well, they've beaten them 3 times in a row. And, I mean, certainly in Philadelphia, I thought he did a great job. And Van Vliet and Siakam, they didn't have big numbers yesterday. And I don't know, Van Vliet might be a little – he rested at the end with three games resting his right knee. I'm not sure he's 100%, but – he struggled against the Sixers in that 2019 series too. So, Siakam can be dominant, and Van Fleet. How about the way he started game 2? And but Tobias deserves a lot of credit. And he came up with a big rebound, had a chance to win it there in overtime. Probably got knocked around a little bit. Could have been maybe a foul. I get it; they're not sending it to the line, but he's been tremendous, and you need that. You need all 4 of them: Harden, Harris, Maxey, and Embiid, and then sprinkle in Shake and 4 or 5 other Danny Green with some threes and whatnot. You need it all.
Danny's been,
sure.
He's 3 threes again. Niang with 3 threes off the bench. And I know Doc got a little testy, but you remember Greg Monroe, probably nightmares about his minutes. Well, when Joel's come off the floor, the game has not gotten away from them. So unit's done a good job.
Yeah, B-ball Paul is, it's hard, but because you're playing, these are the biggest games he's ever played in, and to be able to settle down, and he's had, it's interesting because defensively that helps you. You know what I mean? Like your quick feet but offensively you got to settle into your role. You know what I mean? Like you have to, and that I think he's been a little bit antsy, and that's understandable. But he's made great strides. He's he's got that motor.
Yeah.
And and I think Joel's stints off the floor, like the rest has been a little bit shorter, but no, he's done a fine job. He got in foul difficulty toward the end of the regular season. There were some question marks, and now we'll see, like if it changes, like in the next series, if the Sixers are able to advance and, it looks like it might be Miami. I don't want to get too far ahead, but that's what Doc Rivers said. He would, do it per matchup. It would be more Dwayne Dedmon. But, I think there's something with the way that Reed's jumping around. He could play guys like Dwayne Dedmon, too. So he's been terrific, I'll tell you that. And there's always surprises, right? A lot of times, you put up on the whiteboard what it's going to be, and then it's, it's X, Y, and Z sometimes, and that's how it goes.
All right, Tom McGinnis, we'll let you get back to your Canadian fare. Maybe have a blue, right? Enjoy the day off. You got 2 days off now.
Yeah, no, this is a neat, diverse North American city. It's an incredible town for sure. They still got a lot going on up here. There's places you have to show your COVID card or your vaccination card. There's a lot of masking. It's different, but it's a great stop. It's an incredible city, and yeah, it's good, I think, for the team to be able to decompress.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we'll be shoot around, that kind of thing, because the game's so early, you won't have that. And that, the preparation, look at film a little bit. I think some of the low-minute guys went and had some practice today, get a little run in, but it'll be great. Mike, thanks for having me.
Tom McGinnis, everybody. Thanks, Tom.
All right, bud.
The voice of the Sixers right here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll have his call Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock, here on 97.3 ESPN. Tom McGinnis.